Welcome, everybody. I'm already getting made fun of. Welcome, San Luis Obispo Real Estate Podcast with Hal Sweasey. How are you, sir?
I'm good. We've realized what happens if you have a long podcast that we need to have a snack.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do two in a row.
Look at me. Right? I got to keep this thing full of food.
Yeah.
I got to keep rolling.
You're like that Snickers commercial.
I am. Yeah. JT, how are you?
I'm awesome. Are you kidding me?
Of course. You're always awesome, and I love that.
Get to be with you, man.
Bobby, and you are?
I'm well, thank you.
You're well, not awesome? Okay, she's just well.
Okay, I could be awesome, too.
All right.
Yeah, I think you're awesome.
Yeah.
She's just playing it down.
Yeah.
She's actually awesome.
Phenomenal.
She didn't want us to feel
you got
bad.
one up.
That's a step above awesome.
Yeah, it is a step above. Mr. Kingman,
just
you're here.
one quick note on Cambria or Cambria. Here's the difference. Sometimes you notice you go to Cambria. I mean, I'm referencing the last podcast.
Okay.
I was like,
this is out of left field.
What did I miss? Yeah.
But I was thinking
black
about
out?
it. I was thinking about it over the past week, and I was like, so when you go to Cambria is like a Stephen King thriller. That's when you call it Cambria. When it's Cambria, it's like a Hallmark Christmas movie. In Cambria. And I get those two feelings from that community. Sometimes it's like a Stephen King thriller that is murder has taken place somewhere in Maine when I go there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I go there and it's like, complete town square Hallmark movie.
It could go either
So
way.
Christmas is Cambria and Halloween it's Cambria.
Yeah. And they have scarecrows up there and Halloween
makes sense.
and all that stuff.
Jeff, that's
But
really
what do you
deep.
call it? What's the actual name?
We don't know.
Nobody knows.
Well, you
I don't
can't
think you can get
Google
it wrong.
because the Google machine doesn't talk to
It's
you.
like Lompoc and Lompoc.
Ooh,
That's the
that's
title.
that's a
choice.
whole different.
There's no such thing as
I've never heard of Lompoc.
What movie was
Lompoc,
it? Do you-
yeah.
Really?
Fast and the Furious? What was it? And
yeah,
they talk
Nicolas
about...
Cage. No, not Nicolas Cage. Vin Diesel's in it.
Yes, Vin Diesel talks
Yeah,
about
but
it.
he's a meatball.
Maybe
I
people.
know a lot of people from Lompoc. Isn't it Lompoc?
That's how I say it.
It is.
I
But then
hope so.
that's coming from the guy that drives by Buellton and it says, it's Anderson P. Soups. And our friends go, no, it's P. Soups Anderson.
That is the correct
No,
name.
it's not. I mean, my wife and I were like, it is not P. Soups Anderson. That's the weirdest thing ever. And then you drive by the sign and say, oh,
Yeah.
It's P. Soup Anderson's.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry.
So
JT's looking at me
Cambria,
like we need to get
started
started.
this.
I know,
Yeah,
my
I
bad.
know.
My bad.
He's giving me
We're
the.
going to talk about
let's
real
get-
estate or what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
real estate.
Okay.
Well, Hal, we have a subject that we need to talk about. It's pretty important because it's
prevalent.
absolutely
Prevalent, relevant.
relevant. It's happening. It happens.
It's
Thank you.
happening.
It happens.
It's,
Yeah.
I don't
Let me
like
simplify
having
that
younger
for you.
people
Don't
in
try to
here
be
because they catch all the things I say incorrectly.
She's been pointing out
Yeah.
all your errors.
Yeah.
Hey,
I know.
I thought it makes
Yeah.
us better. I
Right.
thought that was...
Yes. This is she just gave me a learner's guide to the English language. I got a book because she's our captain here. So she's
Right.
trying to get me
Boss
to speak
lady.
English properly.
Hal, let's get going. What do
Yes.
you think? What are we talking about?
Well, John, you noticed
I
this.
just noticed this in the last couple of months. For some reason, it jumped out at me that so many of your listings are coming from families where they have to make a decision about real estate because mom or dad or both have passed away, or they've had to, leave their dwelling and go into an assisted living.
The house is too
facility.
much.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I've just noticed that you've been dealing with a lot of those families and how we go about helping those folks.
Yeah, well, I hope it's not my kids calling about me at this juncture. It could be very, very soon. Yeah,
Eventually,
no.
yeah.
No, but I've got still my father around. He's 89, so we're kind of grappling with that.
We love him too.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I'm going to bring him on sometime. And
Oh, that would be-
I'm
that
going
would
to
be
do
awesome.
music.
Great.
I'm going to have him play.
Play the guitar.
Hal Sweasey the
No,
second,
he's a piano
right there.
and vibes.
Well, background music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
intro.
so I diverge. Divert.
gosh.
What is the
Bobby
word?
will help you.
Digress.
There it is.
Something with a D. It's a D.
Wow, you are
word.
like
went
beating
backwards.
me up,
It's
though.
late in the
You're
day.
making this-
James got me a double shot of agua here. I don't know what's happening, right? It is wild, though. We get so many calls. We have a pretty healthy online presence because of, we try to do a great job and get reviews. So people look up agents if they're from out of the area. So a lot of these folks from out of the area, I got a call yesterday from somebody. They left a message. I called back and, yeah, my father passed away. We got a house in Atascadero. Don't know what we're going to do with it yet, but I just need a basic value so we can talk about what to do with the property. And, oh, great. Who should I thank for giving you our name? Or, no, I found you online and you got a lot of 5-star reviews. Great. So we get so many of these calls in a lot of our listings. So people, so here's the decisions that come up. Mom or dad have unfortunately passed or, we just have mom or dad, and now they need to go in a home. So what do we do? So there's things that come up, and people have options, right? So we have to talk about, all right, boy, do we keep it and maybe just have it there? Because some people do that because mom and dad leave and go to a retirement home, and they don't want them to 6 months later go, I hate it here, I want to move back in the house. So that's always, I see that happen where they just hold on to it. Do we just keep it and rent it out and get the income out of that? Okay, to support mom or dad, or we want to keep it in the family or have the kids have it. Do we sell it? So those are like three. Or if mom and dad are still there, sometimes like, well, we want to keep them there, but they're out of money, so we can get a line of credit or a reverse mortgage.
Reverse mortgage.
Yeah, we can leverage it, I guess would be the other option. So yeah, we come across all those, right? And
what are some of the common hurdles that the family has to get over? Let's say in my family, there were 3 children, myself and my 2 siblings, and it's hard to divide real estate in thirds.
yes.
So the reality is, many families choose to liquidate so they can divide it up, right?
Well,
What do they have to do to get ready?
let me back up a step because this is really, really important. Recently, I had an example where I helped this couple probably in the 90s sell their mom's house downtown on Bouchon Street. And then I stayed in touch, and he was an attorney, and she, I think, was a librarian. And so he passed away in 2018, and then the mom just moved into a retirement home. I didn't know that because I hadn't talked to him for a couple of years, but the daughter remembered me from the Bay Area, comes down, hey, mom's moved out. We can't really rent the house. It's not enough, so we need to sell it. Okay. So long story short, I meet with them, and I go, oh, okay, well, mom needs all the as much from the house as possible. I go, okay, and the dad passed in 2018. Yep. So, okay, great. You probably have a stepped up basis. He was a trust attorney, a state elder, state law elder planning attorney. And they go, nope. Well, what? Nope. Dad never did a trust for his own property. Wow. Right. So they lost that step up in basis, and that's a long story, but basically it allows you to reset what your basis is because they bought that house new in the 60s. Paid like $19,000. So if they step it up to 2018, let's call it's worth at least $500,000 or $600,000. Now it's worth $700,000 or $800,000. Mom gets $250 tax free. So long story short, they're going to pay a lot in taxes that they shouldn't. So the first thing is if you have elderly parents, family members that you're responsible for, get them to a good legal advisor on trusts and probate and wills, because if you inherit it and it's a trust, it's going to be a lot simpler. If it has to go through probate, expensive, long, and unknown. Okay, so first of all, get them in touch with somebody. My parents, when I moved them here a couple of years ago, we got to get this formalized, right? And so that is the biggest thing. And we had people that we can recommend. So get legal advice on how to take care of that estate, which includes their home, their most valuable asset.
You've got a couple properties in escrow right now that are not in a trust. You've had them in escrow for many, many months. And had there been a trust, escrow would have been closed and the family would have had their money months ago.
Oh,
right?
I think I know what you're talking about. We can't give specifics.
Right.
That is actually a different scenario.
Okay.
Oh, that's a court-ordered sale where, again, it goes to the court, which, that can happen where you have to get court confirmation if you have a probate.
But if you don't, if you had a trust, it would never end up going to the court for a court-ordered sale, would it?
That was the one you're talking about is two families. Two families that can't agree, right? That have inherited property.
I see.
Right. So they probably, So to answer your question, if they would have had that direct instructions on what to do with the property.
Right.
In fact, you were mentioning that earlier. Yeah.
A
lot of people get the instructions and the instructions aren't great. Meaning, what happens if I pass away? It needs to be clear what my 2 boys and the heirs do with the property.
Yeah, I was sharing with you earlier a story of a family I know where it was a second marriage, and there were children from both
previous marriages.
Right.
Yeah.
And the woman passed away 20 years ago, and the man just passed away in the last 2 years, and the family goes to sell the property, and all the equity in the house went to his side. And her side was left out in the cold. And I know that she and he wouldn't have wanted that to happen that way. But, most people aren't going to voluntarily give up some money they have a legal right to.
Right.
Right. So what that would tell me is, just because I had a trust or mom and dad did that was done 20 years ago, you probably ought to revisit it. Right. We should all, keep an eye on that. And then that's the last thing you want to prepare for. Right. But it's an important thing.
Yeah, we did our first trust in 1991, right after our daughter was born.
Yeah.
And we've redone it probably 5 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Because your friends, you don't like them anymore.
Things change. and the kids became adults where we don't
Right.
have to worry about,
Their
somebody
care.
taking
Yep.
care of them. So
Yep.
Well, it seems like everybody's going to go through it. You guys know my situation recently.
Yes.
That's, something I didn't even really think about. And this episode's helping me. So the first
Right.
thing I'm going to do is, call my mom
Give
and
me-
talk to her and,
yeah.
and get things situated.
She needs good advice.
Yeah,
on that.
she's been in her homes for 50 years.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my
no.
goodness.
Yep.
Yeah, same address.
Yeah. So that's a thing that everybody should pay attention to.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's like step 1.
Step 1.
Make sure you have it, understand it.
Yeah. When you see the handwriting
it.
on the wall, or at this juncture, I probably should have mine revisited because my kids are grown and independent now, right?
now, Bobby, we're talking about the recent listings that Hal's taken and it being kind of what I'll call generational transfers of property, and as you oversee a couple hundred agents, are you observing this same phenomena across the county?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of questions on these types of things. And that's the thing, as real estate, professionals, you want to do your best and answer the questions, but you always want to direct people to have their tax consultants, all those, the lawyers, all that, review it. But we get a lot of questions on it.
Well, and wasn't one of this ties in that one article you sent over recently that this was the lowest number this past year in the United States of people selling their home.
People moving. Yeah, they're blaming it on the baby boomers for staying in their homes too long.
Well, yeah, that's a big chunk of them. But anybody that's bought a house in the last 5 years and has a great rate on it is less likely to give it
Right.
up. So where do the sellers come from? People like, okay, we don't need the house anymore because mom or dad, has moved on.
Right.
One of the interesting points from that article is, 2 decades ago, the average person stayed in their home for about 7 years, and
Right.
now it's 13.
Yeah.
So people are staying in their homes longer. But yeah, the interest rates could have an impact on that. But as they stay in their homes longer, then there aren't as many homes available for the first-time home buyers. So,
Right.
so elderly, I don't like that word elderly, but I've decided it's the best one to use right now. Older people, a lot of times would choose to sell their home and maybe buy something a little smaller, and that's not happening today. And so it's impacting the inventory.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're living longer.
We are living longer.
So that changes the dynamic, right? So the population of this country continues to rise for sure. But I do see that too. And that is somebody who can win. We've talked about this before in this marketplace. I've got a 4-bedroom house that's now worth 1.2. I paid $200,000 for it a long time ago or whatever that is. And I can sell it for that price and go buy something smaller for $600. That's all I need.
Right.
Right. So scaling down is very common. So those types of moves. So that doesn't happen when you're 30 or 40, but maybe 50, 60, 70, 80. Right.
So let's circle back to the family that calls you and they want to sell mom and dad's house. What are some of the obstacles that are typical in helping those families
Yes.
sell the property?
Yeah. A lot. Like one of the first steps is mom and dad's stuff. Right. And what
That could be emotional,
Oh
too.
boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what takes the most, right? Who's going to get the photo albums? There's the special painting, the books, the things that are memorabilia that people like. And then beyond that, boy, I tell you, these estate sale people, they are busy, right? So we got the couches and the furniture and, the doggy door that my dad has moved since, they haven't had a dog for 15 years. So it's my little gripe. Dad, if you're out there, I'm sorry, but you haven't had a dog. Let's take the doggy door out of storage and give it to somebody who can use it, right? So
We all have our own version of
moved
the
it from
dog.
Palm Springs to Cayucas to San Luis Obispo and all that. We moved this thing 3 times.
Let's get him a dog.
There you go, Bobby.
There's your answer. Yeah.
Your parents are obviously younger with that kind of comment. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's getting the declutter, right? A lot of that's a sale of the property, and then the decision. Like one of the first ones is like, what do we do? So what is involved with getting it for rent? What is involved with keeping it? Like I've got some good buddies whose parents, they have their parents' home in Carpinteria, beautiful, and they just use it as like a second home. They're very fortunate to be able to do that.
Right.
And then what do we need to do to get it ready for sale? And oftentimes getting it ready for rent is a lot more work than sale because you got to make it, dial it in for, expensive.
Is it unusual for there to be some deferred maintenance or some landscaping that's probably not what it once was?
Yeah, let's face it, when I'm 75, 85, 95, I have less energy to, to take care of my house. So there's usually, it's not ready for sale.
How overwhelming too for those kids, having
is.
their own lives, having their own, trying to keep their own life going, and then showing up. I imagine you get a lot of questions like, okay, so how are you going to help us do this?
Yeah, and we do that,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of them don't live close by. So that's
Right.
where we become an additional asset. So, okay, do you want me to get a price for, get someone from that does an estate sale to look at it? Let's look at getting the landscaping cleaned up. Probably it's worth painting this house. We'll get a carpet bid. We don't have to replace it. Let's get the sewer line inspection. All those things that can be done because the clear out process takes the most time.
Right.
Given us a relatively empty house in a week and a half or 2 weeks, we can get all that thing bid out, cleaned out, and maybe done. Right. So we become their de facto property manager, representative, whatever it is.
Right.
And we just say, hey, here's what we have, pricing bids. I recommend this, but you have that option. So we bring the options to bear for sure for them.
That's so nice.
It's not unusual for you to take a listing and yet that listing doesn't hit the marketplace for a month or two, huh?
Or more. Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We just had one recently with a gentleman still in his house. He got into a retirement home. We're doing the inspections. We get the clean out. We get everything done. And, and we get it just really in that case cleaned up. And then had a nice couple from the Bay Area said, we love it. We want the property and we want to do what we want to do to the house. Right. So it's making those decisions on where we spend the money and what's the biggest bang for the buck for sure. So
better to have those conversations sooner then and get someone involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
not to
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
I would bet that in handling a real estate transaction, it's easier when you have one decision maker. And in family situations, sometimes you have multiple decision makers. How do you navigate that arena where they have to come to a consensus?
Well, it's nice. So we try to get someone to be the spokesperson or the funnel for a lot of the information. And then there's certain times when I go, okay, let's get on a Zoom or a conference call because we're all going to talk about an offer or whatever it is. So if we can do that, good. But it turns out, I never would have realized this, everybody has an opinion. So there's a lot of input, right? So you might have a family with 3 siblings and they all have spouses. And then, one of the sibling has the authority to make the decision, right? They've been given the keys to the castle, but 2 others have a strong opinion. And so that's very rare where one person takes the ball and just, the other 2 just go, hey, whatever you decide, Mary, for the house, we'll go with it.
Yeah.
Tell us when it's done. Right.
Usually one has a best friend that's a realtor also, I've found.
Of course.
There's always one of those.
Friend of a friend.
Exactly. Yep. So there's always that. And, you got to get everybody on the line and hear them out. And I always ask who else is going to be involved. Well, my cousin's an attorney. So great. Well, let's get them on the line and let's talk about what needs to happen. So and I always put it on me because being named a trustee, there's not a class for that.
No.
Right. So you just all of a sudden, somebody, I don't have any family members, but if I did, long lost uncle that had any wealth or well-to-do and I got named the trustee, I wouldn't know what to do. And then, oh, by the way, these 4 people are going to get the proceeds from this house you're going to sell. Right. It's a lot of pressure.
Totally.
Right. So I try to take that off and let's get everybody on the line so they understand how you came up with the price. If you get an offer, let's get everybody on the line so we understand why we're countering the way we did because as a trustee, you have a fiduciary duty to do the best for the trust. And if it looks like you didn't do your job and someone felt like they got shortchanged, then you could have some consequences on your hands. So it's a big responsibility with very little compensation, and you don't usually get a glowing round of applause when it's all done. Right? It's a thankless job, I guess.
It
is what I'm
is
saying.
a thankless job.
How
done it.
often?
I've done it.
How often do you get involved in those kinds of transactions?
A lot more now,
Really?
right?
God, it sounds like a nightmare.
It really
does.
Yes.
How cool to help a family, though. I mean, that's
Right.
such a,
No, I
so
mean, yeah,
rewarding.
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, you deserve a pat on the back when you get it accomplished.
You know,
for sure.
when you do it for 33 years and deal with lots of people, you get to understand the dynamics,
Which is nice. I mean,
And I feel like Henry Kissinger most of the time, right? Just trying to pick two diverging parties, try to find common ground. I got to do that with buyers and sellers more often than not.
and you have the
It's-
right personality and the right training through career choice
Yeah.
to handle it. So it makes sense. But
Yeah.
man, I could never.
It's a lot.
It's hilarious. it's actually, it's a kick.
And sometimes
Yeah.
the ones who don't have the vote are the ones with the loudest voice too, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking about my family.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me
I'm
too.
like, oh, I know my sister is going to be. She can hear this. She knows.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
I love you, sis. And we're just be prepared.
You know,
Yeah.
you can hire someone, though, to be the trustee.
To be my sister?
To be the trustee. You can, yeah.
Listen, explain that because this
Well,
is critically important.
I don't know how much more I can explain it other than you can select a mediator,
Professional
basically.
trust officer. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go to most banks or wealth preservation. Yeah. You can get a trust officer.
Yeah.
And they are, then the family doesn't get in the middle of it.
Right.
There's a cost for that, but it's probably worth it.
And what
Probably
control do
totally.
you lose?
Well,
The trust officer, if you're the trustee, if you're named the trustee, you have a set of instructions.
Right.
House to be sold, not to be sold, who gets what.
Right.
So you're just going to follow the instructions, but there's no drama, right? So James, the brother, is different than, Mary, the outside professional trust says, no, you can yell at me all you want, but it says specifically, this is the wishes of the family.
Following the instructions.
That's all
to
you're
the
doing.
T.
Yeah.
You know, James, in the
Don't
last,
shoot the messenger, right?
Right.
But that's a
Yeah.
different messenger than if you're in the family because
Truth
it's
like
easy
a
to shout you,
gift,
James,
yeah.
because
Yeah, well, the
what you
nice
did
thing
to your
is-
sister in third grade.
Right. Yeah. The nice thing is I don't care about that stuff too, so I totally could be the trustee.
James, in the last 5 or 6 years, I was asked to look after the widow of one of my dear friends who was in her 90s. And so I had power of attorney for this woman, but she was never declared, incompetent.
Right. Not of sound mind to make business
No,
decisions.
but she was
yeah.
in an assisted living facility. I paid all her bills. They wanted me to be the executor, and I knew better. And so and they didn't want the 3 kids fighting and the 10 grandkids who were the heirs. So the attorney who drew up the trust was the executor. So once she passed,
Oh, wow. You knew better. I thought you said, but I didn't. So you let the attorney was a trustee.
once she passed, I was done.
Right.
In fact, I had no authority anymore. The second her heart stopped beating, my power of attorney ceased.
Gone.
And so he took over, and I was not involved.
Best decision you ever
Best
made.
decision.
yeah, you're all still
But
Yeah.
but also the you had 13 people who could
Wow.
have started multiple arguments.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so they didn't have a choice. And there was a poison pill in the trust that said if you fight it, you're out.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
good.
know
Wow.
if that's
That's-
enforceable or not, but it
think
was
it
written.
is.
I mean, why wouldn't
That's
it be?
what
Yeah.
you know how you find out?
Yeah.
You get a good
Yeah, fight it.
tax
Yeah,
no
fight
trust
it.
attorney.
Yeah.
No, you don't find out that way.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Well, my I don't know, 20 years ago, there's a guy I play volleyball with, an attorney in town, and I would call him sometimes for legal things. He'd call me for real estate things, and he loved to argue. And I go, you know what? It's so interesting in your line of work. You get paid if people can't agree. And I only get paid if people do agree.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, you got to find common ground for people to figure this
Yeah.
stuff out. Right. So it's for me, it's a game. He loves to argue. I love to get people to get on the same
Yeah.
page.
Yeah. There are some families who everybody gets along fantastically.
I've read about that family.
And there are some that you would think they weren't related at all. The the way they feel about one another,
Right.
and the trust or lack thereof. So, the worst in people come out when there's money involved.
I agree.
And so this is a tricky situation and that you handle, Hal.
Yeah.
And that's why we brought it up. But preparation is a key, right? Whether it be the preparing the estate or preparing the property. They're both very, very important.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of those weird things that around here in appreciation, something that's often talked about on this podcast, houses in the 80s, even 90s were bought for pennies on their to present day value. And the kids or the heirs start to realize that that's when the knives probably come out.
Yeah, I would call our values life-changing,
Yes.
on a house that hasn't been mortgaged by a reverse mortgage or whatever. I mean, a free and clear house that, mom and dad or my aunt and uncle or whoever had, that's life-changing wealth transfer. Yeah.
I'm thinking about one property in town that I know very well because I lived in that property in graduate school, and I know what the value was then, and I know the approximate value now. And it's about 15 times in 50 years.
Yeah.
So if you had a $50,000 house in 1975, that house is worth $750 or more today.
Yeah, not in
Right?
San Luis because it had to be the cheapest town, 75. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's worth more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of money to fight over, I guess, if
Yeah.
you're siblings.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. Well, does anybody have anything else to share? And any opinions or?
I would just say the exception, and you referred me your neighbor's house in Cayucas.
Right.
And that was probably the easiest trust sale I've ever handled, right? Where there was just one beneficiary, one trustee, it's simple. So the exception to the rule is a house that you inherit or take over from mom and dad or whatever that works out. The exception is it goes smoothly. So be prepared.
Be prepared.
That would be my that would
And
be
what's
my advice.
just before we wind this up, what's maybe the one or two important questions that you ask the heirs when they first reach out to you?
Well, what is your preference? I mean, do you have a preference in mind? Like,
Okay.
oh yeah, we want to do everything we can to keep the house. Great. Then we look at keeping it and living there, getting it for rent. Or no, we don't, we just don't have the time, the energy, we want nothing to do with it. Right. So which direction they're going to take. Yeah. And then sometimes they don't know. Right. So then I just have to explain to them, if you sell it, this is what happens if you keep it over time. And there's some tax stuff involved that I can't give them. I can give them general ideas, but I'm not allowed to give tax advice.
Right.
So I have them seek that. But a lot of people don't even go that far in terms of like when they talk to a client about it. But it could be the biggest expense you have.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Well, if we look at the age of our baby boomers, it's probably between now and the end of your career, it's probably the biggest share of our market.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generational transfer of property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the name of this podcast?
I don't know.
I think you
I just made that
I
up.
think it's up to Jeff. He kind of decides.
I'm just thinking you might get a lot of calls when you throw out that daunting.
But the point is how to heirs
right.
deal with the property that's being transferred to them through through their
Yeah.
parents.
So off what you just said, Jeff, we talked about, what'd you say? Bring a friend, invite a friend to listen
Yeah.
to the podcast. And,
Yeah.
and we've said this in an early podcast, it's been a while since we've said it. If there's any listener, viewer now that you have a topic that do you want us to discuss? You can shoot Hal, myself an email. It's easy. James at Team Sweasey, Hal at Team Sweasey, John at Team Sweasey. Let us know. We would love to talk about it. And, we're here to use everybody's knowledge and experience and to help everybody out with topics, even though sometimes it's,
And if you have it, I would just, listening to this discussion, completely engaged into it. And if you have somebody that, and for many of the same reasons, and we're coming up on this in our family, so the same reasons that you're engaged into it, James. you pass it along to, pass the link along to somebody, or whether it's the YouTube link or the podcast link or whatever it is, to say, hey, get your ducks in a row.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, sometimes I am one of the first people call, call a real estate agent or a property manager, whatever. Sure. Obviously we have both. I would say if there's a listener out there and they have, say they're local or whatever, and they have somebody that lives in Dinuba or Lake Tahoe or whatever, family member, call us, because I know good agents that are like me that have been around the block and know how to connect. Because what we do oftentimes, and the value we bring, is we know who the people are who can provide the service, give them the advice, right? So it's like
it's not what you
a
know,
good
it's who you
person
know.
will have the network to go, oh, you need that problem? I got a person for that. So anyway, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, and just let everybody know, Hal's a normal person, right? He's not going to try to sell your house or make you buy a house.
The loose definition of normal.
You can give him a call.
That's loose.
Define normal for me.
You can give him a call. He'll talk to you. He'll give you advice. And Hal's a great guy. Don't tell him I said. But feel free to shoot him an email. Shoot us an email. We are here to help you, and that's the main reason why we're doing this podcast.
Hey, I think the bring a friend concept is a great one, James. And we started this about 2 years ago, and we're up to many thousands of listeners every week. And
we're doing pretty good.
And we like growing our audience, and so send a link, to a friend of yours, somebody that you think might get something out of spending a few minutes.
80 some odd episodes, and I should have a hard number on that, but there's some things we're close to 90 episodes. There's something that applies to everybody.
Sure.
In any of the episodes that we've done that you can pass along that is pretty solid advice. And I don't say that because I work for the podcast. I mean, you guys are very smart at what you do.
The first one had 20 listeners.
Yeah.
And now what was the number you gave me the other day?
We're top 5 business in the country, so there's
we've
got
done
a lot.
90. 90
we've done 90. Yeah.
Oh my God!
The 100th episode, we got to do something special. 20 or 30. How?
I lose track. It all runs by. So wait a minute. So when did we start this? So this is
May.
We're going on 2 years.
May will be 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I
22.
should start having to pay me by the episode.
We're fancy now. We have these little boom things, so
that's
we're moving
true.
up in the world.
What's sad for Hal's tennis legacy is our least listened to episode is probably the first episode, and there's a fascinating insight into Hal's historic tennis career.
Go back
and listen to it.
I don't like going back because we're super choppy. We're brand new at it. We're like nervous.
Oh yeah, you're a perfectionist.
I'm not into it.
That's why we get along with the yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang.
Bobby, do you know about Hal's tennis prowess?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I know he played.
Go back and listen.
Okay. I couldn't even.
It's episode 1.
Yeah.
Good one.
Okay.
Good one.
I produced it myself. It's 6 hours long of me dribbling on. Yeah.
All right.
This is a double fault.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Great podcast. It was very informational for me.
Yep.
Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it as well. Again, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We will respond, good or bad, JT. So, thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.